Good afternoon. Welcome back. Well, thank you all for being here. It is a great pleasure. My name is Dean Angelides, and I'm a corporate director at Esri. And actually, this room and you, I have to admit, are kind of intimidating to me because you are the science of where. You all are applying the science of where, which is actually this intersection of the science of geography, the science of our world, which is an integrative science, and how it intersects actually with the technology of GIS. And you all, from what I've seen so far today, quite an amazing group of people working on many different things. So why is the science of where so important? From my perspective, we all understand and know that there are many challenges and an increasing number of challenges in the world. Climate change, political polarization. We even heard a presentation about that this morning. Increasing population, inequalities, consumption just increasing, clean water, energy, all of these things actually need to be better understood if we're actually going to take the right actions to begin to solve them. And so our world, as we've already discussed this morning, is undergoing a massive digital transformation. The science of where actually is a fundamental digital language, and it will lead to more understanding so we can better manage our world. Part of the science of where also includes not just the language, but it includes a framework, actually, for managing information, all of the measurements that are happening from all these new different sensors as part of this digital transformation, then the ability to visualize and map them, creating understanding, taking those actually into the world of prediction and deeper analytics, moving those analyses and predictions into a planning and design framework using a collaborative approach, bringing together all the ideas that are needed to actually create a better future. Then moving from planning into an actual decision-making frame. This actually means bringing together all of the information and all the science and all the models and all the different ideas like we heard about this morning. How do we actually capture all the ideas into the decision-making process? Information and science-based decision-making. And then taking those decisions to action. Transforming, actually, how we think and fundamentally how we act to create a more sustainable future. GIS, it turns out, provides us with the platform. This is for managing, analyzing, and applying the geographic information that you all are working with every day. It's kind of interesting because this integrates people, processes, and things, and actually the data about all of this. This platform actually works with three different types of systems. First of all, it's the system of record, which many of you are actually building on a daily basis. These are transactional records about where utility assets are, the condition of a transportation system, how water is being delivered, or land records on all these on a transactional basis. And this has actually been the primary focus, really, of those of us in GIS for many years. We also saw something very interesting this morning, and this is how GIS can be applied to all of these sets of authoritative content to bring new insights, creating a system of insights, meaning finding new patterns, understanding more about the situation that we're in. And then there's a new kind of pattern which is emerging, which is referred to as a system of engagement. Actually, how do people participate in this idea of a digital world? So, yes, we communicate by these devices. You know, it's like the least used app is becoming the phone app now on these devices. We're engaging in many different ways. And actually, that's how people are beginning to want to work. And actually, this platform, this GIS platform that we have, called ArcGIS, actually allows us to work with all three different types of systems all together. It's really quite extraordinary. So it's using the power of where to integrate everything. Peter talked about this morning, where GIS is actually advancing very rapidly. And actually, it kind of rides on top of many other technology trends. First of all, there's data, all the data that's moving from all different sources and sensors. And the computing infrastructure that's getting more powerful, easier to use, deeper and faster, and new ways of actually leveraging all that information, like through machine learning and artificial intelligence, capturing all of that information from all the sensors and all the networks and people's behavior and the behavior of things and ecosystems and so on. So the innovation of this GIS platform is also accelerating in a very fast way. So we have to be able to manage all of these data streams in real time. It's not just a monthly transaction or a daily transaction. No, it's thousands and tens of thousands and millions of transactions per second, even, as we move ahead. And also, this data needs to be analyzed and compiled and organized as open data to share with the public, to sort of drive innovation, new ways of actually using that information to create value and make people's lives better. Anyway, you think about all this, it's about expanding, actually, the power of GIS well beyond the use patterns that we have today. It's leveraging the web, leveraging new apps, and most importantly, this is distributed. It's not just one big system. No, it actually is a distributed system. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So this WebGIS pattern that's emerging is actually a modern GIS architecture. It's focused primarily on helping everyone do their work better. It leverages web services, and it's distributed. And being distributed, it also allows us to collaborate in a more effective way. It actually can be used by individuals. It can scale up to be used by teams. It can work across entire departments, and actually many departments within organizations. And fundamentally, this is about improving productivity and efficiency of organizations. And we're seeing right now that it's actually growing exponentially. WebGIS actually simplifies how we work with all types of data. If you think about it, all of these different data feeds from different sensors, different systems, how do we actually do that? It's kind of interesting, but with WebGIS, we're actually able to, first of all, manage all the different types of data. Image data, tabular data, traditional vector data that we're used to working with, now expanding into the 3D area, and also the real-time data and storing things away and dipping into big data stores, and then scanned information from LiDAR, ground-based, aerial, and so on. And all of these different data types can be abstracted actually into a few simple things called web maps, web scenes, and layers. It's actually pretty interesting, using the language of GIS to allow us to integrate and mash up all of this information in very easy ways. So as I mentioned, actually, this WebGIS pattern also leverages dynamic data about everything, both the built environment, the natural environment, all these sensors, and all through sort of this Internet of Things to be able to mash that up and use it as well. What actually brings all this information to people, that's you and your customers and your citizens and your customers, actually extending the reach of GIS, actually entering a whole new realm and a whole new generation, I would say, of GIS. These apps are actually specifically designed for use in the field, moving information back and forth between the field and the office. Also using business apps, incorporating business data and business graphics right into the maps and making it highly interactive. Also having apps for design, being able to determine suitability through a variety of models, being able to sketch areas for different types of uses, being able to develop all different scenarios, being able to share those, sharing those through viewer apps, apps that are specifically made to visualize all of this content. And of course, social media. Let's say not just the Facebooks and the Googles and the Twitters and so on, the social feeds that we're used to using, but it's actually leveraging the style of communication to connect in a totally different way with our constituents. And then there's story maps. This is one of the most popular applications that we've ever created. It's quite amazing. It really gets down into the most human parts of who we are and the stories that we have to tell and the way that we naturally want to communicate with each other. And then it's sort of the analytical side of things. How do we actually track? How do we get operational intelligence about our world and our operations and things that are going on? So all the information feeds abstracted into a single set of dashboards and maps. So this actually allows cross-cutting access across organizations and actually even beyond. So WebGIS is also making spatial analytics more accessible. This is through a couple of different styles of analytics. Yes, it's sort of underpinned by the traditional geoprocessing and spatial analytics that we're all used to. But then we add alongside that big data analytics and geoanalytics, as we refer to it. But then how do we actually interact with those spatial analytics? One is through this idea of exploratory data analysis. And then the other is actually bringing in the world of data science. Data science is actually expanding in a very fast way. How do we actually take advantage of all of those capabilities? So actually we leverage a set of analytical services and integration with R and other statistical packages, and actually the ability to create cross-cutting analytical applications and automation using Python. It's pretty interesting ideas here. Smart mapping, back to the language, actually, of the science of where. It's actually using maps as a communication tool to simplify how we render all of these analytics, how we communicate our ideas. And of course, the beauty of a map, there's no substitute for that, to create an engaging information product that actually brings people to action. WebGIS is revolutionizing how we plan and design. I listened to Yuri from the city of Prague, and I was actually just amazed at how they're using really urban analytics to understand all the interactions that are going on and to design the right type of city. So capturing all that information, looking at not just hard infrastructure like transportation and water and electricity and so on, but the green infrastructure. How do people actually interact with all that and wrap it up into one thing that we call urban design? But this framework that we talked about earlier about the science of where also applies right here into this geo-design process, which allows us to analyze, design, evaluate, visualize, and communicate, and then disseminate so everyone can execute off of one sheet of music. So this idea of connecting people and a new type of system that we call a system of engagement, WebGIS and the apps actually enable this. It enables individuals and organizations and actually extends out through the social media into entire communities of people to create this new way of sharing and collaborating. And actually, there's a new concept that we're working with today, and it's called a Community GIS Hub. This actually provides citizens with information and allows citizens actually to interact with the leadership, provides new input into managing community interactions. This means actually taking policy initiatives and addressing them in a very interactive way with between the citizens and academia and politicians and, well, everybody in the community. In a sense, it's creating a whole new type of GIS, community GIS. So I hope actually through all this you're getting the sense that we're ready to take GIS to a whole new scale. Yes, we work as individuals. Yes, we can work as teams. Yes, we work as departments. Yes, we can work across departments within our organization. And actually, we can begin to build a system of systems between organizations and communities. This is like a whole new thing, ladies and gentlemen, and we can all work together to take it to scale. So I hope you're beginning to conclude here that GIS actually provides us the means, first, just to do our daily work even better, but actually it's you that I really need to ask to apply the science of where and do this broadly. Because this is, after all, an important force. It's a very positive force that we can all take and change the world. So let me shift gears here a little bit and talk about our work, the work of my colleagues in Redlands and the other development centers around the world. They're all working hard for you to create useful technology. So ArcGIS actually is the software platform that they're working on. This is a complete GIS platform. It actually runs on premises. It can run in the cloud, and it's also available as SaaS. It's an open system. It's based on web services, and it's also distributed. ArcGIS actually organizes and manages all aspects of a GIS. Okay, this is kind of interesting. Part of this platform, this WebGIS platform that I mentioned, is actually something quite interesting that we refer to as the Geo Information Model. It actually helps integrate the whole user experience. It allows us to manage apps and workflows and models. It, of course, allows us to manage data and services. It allows us to manage the maps and charts that we create from those data and services, and actually also the metadata about the data and the maps and the charts. It also, interestingly enough, helps us manage our organization and how GIS layers on top, so we can organize our GIS to serve different groups, and then the people and the specific roles within the organization, within those groups. It's kind of interesting. And all of this comes together in something we call the portal. It actually organizes everything. What still remains, actually, with ArcGIS is that it supports multiple implementation patterns. The favorite pattern around the world is the desktop. Most of you use the desktop on a daily basis. If not, well, maybe you're using sort of a client-server architecture to maintain the authoritative content of your organization in this system of record that we talked about. And then there's leveraging online and enterprise patterns to allow you to cut across organizations. And then there's this new pattern that I mentioned, which is actually distributed. That means a system of systems. These connections can actually be made between systems in a very agile way, creating something totally new and actually beginning to interconnect everything. So the capabilities of ArcGIS are also advancing. There's many innovations, and I'm going to try to hit just the highlights here in the next few minutes. I think everybody knows fundamentally at the heart of GIS is data, the content. And that's the content that we're actually trying to manipulate and understand and put to use in many different ways. And so there are actually thousands of ready-to-use maps and data sets that are curated by Esri, but also many of you, like the National Mapping Agency and the Geologic Agency, are actually contributing maps to be shared everywhere throughout the world with people within their various domains and specialties. So this is probably the largest single collection of geographic knowledge on the planet. We're referring to it now as the Living Atlas, because it's growing every day. It's being updated every day with authoritative content that you and your colleagues around the world are all contributing. Data management and compilation is actually an important part of the platform. Using data models, workflows, and tools to enhance that experience is something that we're doing on an ongoing basis. Some of you might be working in electric utilities, and we've been talking about this for a while now, but we're about to release, actually we have had now the first initial release for early adopters of this new utility network. It works in a totally different way. It's not columns and rows in a database. It's actually services-based. It's made to be ultra-high performance, scaling out to millions and millions and actually billions of features to work in sort of this new IoT or industrial IoT world. Also CAD integration, CAD and BIM, 3D. And in fact here I'm going to talk about, I can't announce it, a new relationship actually that we have with Autodesk. So this is actually going to be working side by side to make, like we did years ago, CAD integration easier. Now we're going to extend that to BIM and 3D. There'll be some announcements actually next week in Las Vegas, of all places. Jack and the CEO of Autodesk will be making those announcements. Editing, improved workflows for editing. Obviously, that's a place where people invest a lot. So we're always looking at making things better. Next generation will actually be even more improvements in annotation and attribute editing, being able to edit 3D features in a more efficient way. And then also using imagery and stereo to be able to extract images and features, I should say, features from 3D imagery. And then improved geocoding and location finding. Actually, this is an ongoing thing. We continue to improve, and actually the performance is now quite amazing, especially with our online services. Field GIS is actually one of the fastest growing parts of our platform. The way that we have our apps organized here is actually around a few suites of apps, or apps that work together. Apps for collecting data, like Collector and Survey 123. And also coordinating the work, interfacing with work management systems to be able to send information about, well, your next inspection is at this location. So then people can then navigate and use another app to navigate to that location. And it's not sort of the consumer map that we're talking about here. This is your map with your road network or your utility network that's embedded within, so you can navigate to specific equipment, not just a street address. It's kind of interesting. And then when you get done with an inspection, you can say, I'm done with this, and your next task comes in. So it really dramatically improves efficiency in the field. Also, generic GIS-based viewing tools and markup tools in something called Explorer. Mapping and cartography, we've seen some just phenomenal examples already this morning. But in a way, we're reinventing the way that cartography works in GIS. First of all, with smart mapping. This is actually using some artificial intelligence algorithms, actually, to be able to dive into the data sets that you're trying to map and come up with intelligent-looking displays right from the start, still giving you all the analytical capabilities to apply your science to that data. ArcGIS Pro also continues to improve. It's just incredible. This is not just 2D, but also 3D cartography, which is a whole new science and art. Then moving into production charting and mapping, actually taking all of the tools, the basic tools, and creating suites of tools to lay into production mapping organizations to make aeronautical charting and nautical charting and topographic mapping much more efficient, saving actually countless hours of finishing time and cartographic representations and things like that. So it's quite amazing. And now to the web, also using vector tiles. Not just the raster map tiles, but actually vector tiles, which creates a very light footprint that you can take with you to the field. Actually, also gives some other capabilities like being able to adjust and map on the fly on a browser or on a mobile device without having to make a round trip back to a server. So ArcGIS is also becoming a 3D platform for visualization and analytics because it integrates all types of 3D data, photogrammetry data and stereo viewing, GIS data, 2D and 3D, actually oblique imagery and LiDAR data, and now CAD and BIM. And so the visualization capabilities actually are becoming quite extraordinary. Also being able to merge all of this into the urban planning and design framework and extending actually all those capabilities to all the apps. So whether it's a browser-based app or a simple free viewer called ArcGIS Earth, or the runtimes on devices. And then we continue to work with new data sources and innovating in ways like animations and virtual reality and augmented reality. So you can actually take your authoritative GIS content and put it into an app and take it out into the field with you. It's not just a game. It actually leverages some of that technology, but it brings it into the world of professional and enterprise GIS. GIS is also now a complete imagery platform. It actually supports advanced processing, analytics, and data management. First of all, the ability to take imagery, high resolution from satellites, from aircraft, from drones, sensors of all types, and be able to manage it in an enterprise way. And then actually being able to create dynamic processing chains. It's kind of an interesting idea. So we don't actually have to go to a separate system anymore and process it independently. This processing actually happens on the server, and it's on demand. So when I want to view something, the field of view actually becomes processed on the fly and delivered very, very quickly as an information product into my app or my desktop or my browser. Also, full motion video, some advances there, and of course, drones, drone to map, which now is like this craze. These things are everywhere. You walk through my neighborhood now and every kid's got a drone. Okay, well, the same thing is actually happening in the professional world, and it really is changing the way that we measure and the frequency of measurement. I mentioned about this dynamic image services. It's a whole new idea, actually. And it enables image services, and it extends not just to imagery, but also to full raster analytics. So this is for multi-dimensional raster environmental data sets, raster data sets of all types, integrated with image processing and raster processing. And it's all on this single platform. Spatial analytics really is the heart and soul of ArcGIS. Spatial analytics are expanding and improving in many different ways. First of all, on the web, we're providing new high-performance analytical functions for managing features and also for doing data aggregation and other spatial operators on the web. Also, spatial statistics, space-time statistics that are becoming very important, and from some of the early presentations today, you saw the results of some of that. Also, other enhancements to model builders, to actually being able to optimize your analytics, and then improved processing, both for vector processing as well as for raster and LiDAR processing. I mentioned earlier also about this integration of data science into GIS using the ArcGIS API for Python. In this analytical world, I mentioned a couple of different styles of analytics. One is this idea of exploratory analytics. We have this product called Insights. Actually, it's amazing. How many of you have actually got to experience working with Insights? Not so many. Okay, you better take a look. Go to the workshops. It's quite amazing. You'll love it. Makes it actually much, much easier to create, analyze, and actually share your models. Today, it works with ArcGIS Enterprise, but by the end of the year, which is only a few weeks away, you'll actually be able to use it with ArcGIS Online and take this to the cloud. It's going to be quite amazing, and it's going to change everything. Big data spatial analytics is all about doing analysis that we were never able to do before or would just take too long. So there's two flavors I mentioned before. Actually, one set of analytics that is for raster and image data, and then another that is made for doing things with vector and point information. So you can see that there are actually different types of spatial operators. Actually, the way that it works from a GIS user perspective is very much the same that it works in the way that you interact with an analytical model today. You create a model, you set up the analysis, and you run it. You're thinking, well, what's the big deal? Here's the big deal. In the back end, it's not just your desktop or not just one server. It's actually a cluster of servers that work together in parallel to dramatically increase the performance and the size of the problem that can be solved. It's very interesting. Then there's real-time analytics. Real-time analytics is about integrating all of these new sensor feeds and viewing them and analyzing them in real time. Also creating alerts, sending visualizations to dashboards, and then also storing away the observations into these big spatiotemporal data stores so you can perform geoanalytics on them. Our platform actually is not complete unless we talk about how developers can actually take action to develop applications that serve very specific needs. So we're continuing actually to expand the platform for developers. The APIs, the open APIs that we have for JavaScript, actually the runtimes that are made to run on devices, and this Python web scripting, and then Pro customizations, all are advancing. So really, this is supporting enterprise developers and then other creative, as we call them, maker communities who are looking for new types of apps to engage people in a whole new way. I need to talk about this Python API a little bit more. It's pretty interesting. Does anyone have gray hair like me that remembers AML? Okay, somebody does, yeah. Okay, AML, we used to script things, and then we used to run things, and then if it didn't work, we would change, kind of run it again. Okay, well, this is the command line back again, but it's actually a whole new command line. Okay, so every capability that I've been talking about here is now accessible through this Python API. It's pretty interesting. I can access big data analytics. I can access geoprocessing models. I can actually put a map into my display. And then I can take all these scripts and I can manage them and store them. And then I can actually leverage something new called a Jupyter Notebook. This is like a totally open system that allows you to tap into all different types of analytical functions, not just ArcGIS. So I can actually access information out, let's say, on IBM Watson and their sentiment analytics that are there, or their video analytics looking for trouble spots. And I can run it all from a browser. Huh, pretty interesting. And I can deliver content that integrates all geographic science, any type of data, any type of analytical function that can be accessed through Python. And I can deliver it through a browser. To me, this is a total game changer. So I'm hoping that you're getting the idea that ArcGIS is open and interoperable, and it's also standards compliant. So when I talk to people and I say, well, what does it mean to you to be open? It turns out that people have very different ideas about what that means. So Esri actually takes this very seriously, and we look at it actually in 3 different ways. First of all, everything we do is based on open standards and formats from the IT industry as well as the GIS industry. We also integrate with many of the major business systems that exist today, like Microsoft Azure and Microsoft SharePoint, actually many of the Microsoft products, also SAP HANA and IBM Cognos, and anyway, Azure and Amazon Web Services, and on and on. So these are built-in industry standards and product integration at the core. And then finally, it's this notion of open software. Actually, we provide open data access through our APIs. The APIs themselves are actually extensible and open and well published. And then finally, we use in our software open source components, which we actively contribute to. So overall, this actually creates quite an amazing open platform. The evidence actually is in the thousands and thousands of successful systems that are integrated and running in just about every industry in the world and every continent. I want to talk briefly about ArcGIS Online. It's a relatively new product to many of you, especially those of you who are in the desktop world. But I hope now that even you desktop users will begin to use the connections that are built in, actually, especially with ArcGIS Pro, to ArcGIS Online. If you have desktop GIS, you also have ArcGIS Online. It's all at your fingertips. This is something that's really taking off. Right now, we have over 4.5 million users that use actively ArcGIS every day. And let's say today, while we've been talking, just in the space of this conference, our users have probably created over 500 million maps. So this system creates over 1 billion maps every day. Sometimes it actually spikes up to about 2 or even more than 2 million maps a day. It's pretty amazing, during the hurricanes especially. Incredible. 11 million items and 40 million open data downloads. It's pretty extraordinary. And there's more to come. Well, I want to wrap up here with a few things. And actually, it is a great honor and a pleasure for me to represent Esri and tell you that our lives are actually dedicated to serving you and helping you accomplish your mission. And we actually are working to advance GIS and the science of where to help you do that. I can tell you that we're strong and we're growing, and that we're working to promote spatial literacy around the world, because it's you and your work that is creating an amazing, powerful force in this world. I'd like to also encourage you to take advantage of the professional development resources that we have online. This is actually about getting on a journey yourself of lifelong learning, coming to this conference, diving into documentation, diving into all the amazing books on professional development, or let's say on the topics of GIS. Okay, education, building the next generation. I need to ask you, please take part in GIS Day and adopt a school. Help the next generation actually understand the power of what we have to offer. So let me conclude by saying that knowing is not enough. We must apply. Leonardo da Vinci, actually, he's one of the most inspirational people to me, because he actually, he's an engineer. He was an artist. He was a visionary. So much advanced thinking. And this last statement, being willing is not enough. We must do. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Enjoy the remainder of the conference, and let's all help each other do what we can to make the world more sustainable. Thank you.